Discussion-based assessment is, in the way I do it, it's a conversation that I have with the student. And it happens regularly. It's not at the end of the unit, it's not at 4 months from now. It's a regular conversation where you talk to the student about their learning. They can look at their notes ahead of time, they can do all of that. It's not an oral test because it's deeply a conversation. So when you start off, I start off with something simple. I might even ask, was there an aha moment in yesterday's lesson? What was most interesting about the things we've been doing for the last week? And the student starts to talk about the things that they remember. And that sparks from the things that they liked. And then you can twist it into the things they haven't mentioned. What about this? Why didn't you talk about that? And you get to really assess how their learning is going and what the depth of it, absolutely. Discussion-based assessments in a virtual world, because with online courses, students can do all of that work asynchronously. They can Google, they can use ChatGPT, they can do any of that stuff. But when they have to actually talk to you about it, and it's not that you necessarily say, solve this question, it's talking about the topic, and that's a much deeper concept. So when they do that, you know they've really learned. It puts half of the conversation on the student. They get to choose where the conversation goes. So they start from their strength, and then you can stretch them into the places that they're not as strong at. And as a teacher trying to decide what's the next step for the student, that's more telling than 5 blanks on a quiz, because I don't know why they're blank on the quiz. And maybe they never got to them. Maybe they never, who knows, right? Maybe it's a time thing. But if you are talking to the student and you say, he's missed that concept, that's really quick and easy to know. Sometimes we have students who are nervous about having that conversation, and so it's also part of the relationship building you do when you're teaching with students, talking with students. But the skills are multifaceted, because it's not just remembering facts. Okay? You've actually had to internalize it. You've actually had to apply it in different ways. And the kinds of questions that I spark are usually application questions. So if you were to take that concept, how would you apply it? So when I was teaching an art course, for example, and it was a digital art, it was online. The students, the first time we did a DBA, they took me to the picture of in their house, and it had to be an original piece of artwork. So this one kid didn't have any. He pointed to the chandelier, which was beautiful, and he told me all about how the lines and the form and the light and the shapes and the colors. And so he was able to apply the textbook vocabulary to a real piece in his house. And so then as kind of a final one, I then showed him a piece from my house, and he had to talk about it in the same way. And so we're, in a sense, you're building relationship, but you're also getting the vocabulary. You're getting them to be able to ask questions back, okay? And they'll be able to apply things to different parts of their world. And that's what makes it powerful. The length of time that you're going to set, and having a rubric ahead of time that you talk to students about. And for mine, it's a descriptor rubric. It's about the vocabulary they use, whether they're speaking deeply about it, whether they're applying any of the vocabulary to something else. And sometimes were they able to respond to everything I asked. But I really like it when I find out what are their directions for their question? Where do they want to go with the conversation? So I try and put that into something like asks an original question or brings up a unique concept, something like that I wasn't expecting them to talk about. So setting a rubric ahead of time, telling the kids, here's your rubric, this is what we're going to do in this conversation, and you're being judged by talking to me, and so let's hear it. At first, they're very nervous about it. Okay, they haven't had that kind of test before, and they think of it as a test. So trying to get them to understand it's not a test, it's a discussion. And eventually, they really get excited about them. I have had students who bring in things that are so far kind of down a rabbit hole, but I can see where their learning came from. And sometimes they want to go over the time that I've allotted for it. So that's when I know they're really learning because they want to talk. So I think it's very valuable, especially in the online world when students are taking courses online. A lot of times they're working asynchronously, they're having tutors and families, and they're Googling answers, which is all great. Find all the resources you can, use ChatGPT, whatever it is. We made sure that those asynchronous grades were worth 60% of the grade, and 60 was a pass in this school. So to really do well, you have to talk about your learning. And so that makes it a deeper learning experience as well. Okay? So 40% was the discussion-based assessment, 60% was the work. And so it's really powerful.